Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Baseball America Hot Sheet Show. Ian Cundall, Geoff Pontes joining me, JJ Cooper today. And I want to remind you that prospect profiles are up at Baseball America's YouTube channel. We're putting one up every day. Leo DeVries just went up yesterday. We'll be rolling out another one as soon as this show ends. So check them out as we look at the number one prospect in each and every organization to get you ready for the 2026 season. Spring training is here. And most importantly, right now, the World Baseball Classic is here. All of our World Baseball Classic coverage is brought to you by our friends at Fox One, which is live. Stream all your Fox favorites together in one place, including all WBC games over the next few weeks. And after that, get the best MLB action all season long. We are all about the World Baseball Classic. Geoff, I know you've been poring over Asian rosters. I've been looking at, I've been crazy. I've been looking at, I think I was able to get the average velo for 308 of the 314 pitchers on the rosters. I had some real fun diving in and figuring out velos for the Czech pitchers, some Italian pitchers. I love that we had a report on the Brazilian high school pitcher. We already had a report on him, so that was easy actually. But we wanted to get you ready. Okay, I know that you're going to get ready for the World Baseball Classic, and you're going to hear about Aaron Judge, and you're going to hear about Paul Skeens, and you're going to hear about Terry Skubal. We want to go a little bit beyond that. This is the Baseball America Hot Sheet Show. Geoff, who are you most excited to see non-current MLB player division?
Yeah, I think it's, you probably look at Team Japan and Hiroto Takahashi, which not to be confused with Kona Takahashi, who came over this year and did end up not signing, went back to Japan. This Takahashi, Hiroto, is considered probably the next guy to come over stateside that could potentially make an impact. There's been some comps to like Yamamoto. I don't, it's probably more like a lesser version of a similar style of pitcher. You'll see some mid-90s fastball velocity. It's excellent command and control and pitchability, super pronator, all that sort of stuff. There's a few other Japanese prospects that aren't on the roster this year, but I think that Hiroto Takahashi is probably the guy that you're going to pay attention to just from a future perspective, as opposed to a right now perspective, or guys that are established players in the NPB that probably are unlikely to come over on the position side. So if we're talking the best prospect on Team Japan and we exclude the guys that have already signed, it's probably Hiroto Takahashi.
I love when you said not to be confused with, okay, I've got a better version of that. If you look at the Czech Republic team, the Czechia team, and you say, who are their best hitters? And I would say it's Martin Cervenka, who's the right-handed hitting 6'4" catcher, and Martin Cervenka, who is the 6'4" right-handed hitting first baseman. That is Cervenka with an I for the first baseman and with an E for the catcher. But those are, I would say that those were the best two hitters in the Czech Republic Baseball League this year. And that's your kind of your Czech Republic preview. I would say on a prospect side, probably the most notable names that I would say that we should be watching. Travis Bazana for Australia, obviously, is one that comes to mind. I would say that really Australia needs Bazana to be one of the keys to that team. I would say that him and Curtis Mead, the former Rays prospect, who's kind of bounced around a little bit, those are two guys to definitely watch. Obviously, Nolan McLean for Team USA, but Owen Casey, who was just traded to the Marlins, should be a big bat in the middle of Canada's lineup. And Puerto Rico, Elmer Rodriguez, I do think is also someone that we should absolutely keep an eye on. We've seen what he's done already. I'll kick it back to you, Geoff, for a minute on that. Like what we've seen from him so far is kind of a nice little sneak peek of what we're going to see in the WBC.
Yeah. He's a really interesting pitcher. And, I know he's a guy that Ian is obviously also familiar with. And it's funny because there's a lot to like: the strike throwing, the pitchability. There's a lot of velocity across his pitch mix. But I think the bigger question is like, how are the fastballs going to play? How many bats is he going to miss? And getting an opportunity to maybe see him against some of these really stacked lineups that, frankly, are better than any lineups we're probably going to see in MLB this season. Sans Dodgers division, probably, but still, most of the teams in MLB. And it will be interesting to see how he navigates that, because he is a guy for the Yankees that's right on the cusp here. and could be in the big leagues, maybe in the first half of the season, depending on how health shakes out in that rotation. So, yeah, I think Elmer Rodriguez Cruz is definitely a good call out. One that I think probably Ian can speak to a little bit as well.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, he's someone that I think the big question remains with me is just how is that build going to hold up as a potential starting pitcher? Because you look at him, he's still very thin. And as Geoff said, the stuff has taken off. The fastball velocity continues to increase year over year. But how is that going to hold up over, 140, 160 innings? We're not going to know that, obviously, from spring training or anything. But to get to see him and see how his fastball plays and how if he can get good hitters out, just relying on his secondary stuff, it's going to be a really good test for him.
So we have up at Baseball America now the power rankings for all 20 teams in the World Baseball Classic. And I would just kind of lay out this for someone who doesn't pay as close attention to this. I would say that different teams have different goals here. We have a top tier here in our power rankings: Team USA, Japan, the DR, and Venezuela. And I would say that all four of those teams, you are looking at it and saying, you want to win a title, right? If like Team USA did, where you get to the championship game in 23, lose to Team Japan in a thrilling back and forth game, okay, you're disappointed, but you don't say like, oh, that was a disaster. But these are four teams that I would say absolutely look at this and say, we are looking to win it. Anything short of a semifinal appearance is going to be a real disappointment. That's them. The mass of these teams, I would say, you go from really kind of 5 down to, I think you could really get into almost the teens, are teams that I would say you're looking at this and saying you want to make it out of pool play. There are 5 teams in each of the pools to make it out. That means you are one of the top 2 in your pool. That's where I would say the vast majority of teams, that gets you to the quarterfinals. If you get to the quarterfinals, hey, let's see what you can do. Then it becomes, win a game and kind of make a crazy run. But there are a lot of teams. That's where I do think that this is impressive, is how the WBC, I would say, has changed. Crazy enough, I've covered every one of these going back to 2000 and, this the first one. Where this has changed is I would say that the depth of the teams in the middle has gotten better. When you look at a team like Italy, when you look at a team like Great Britain, look at the team like Israel, look at a team even like Colombia. These are teams where what I would say is if in the past it would be like, okay, here we're going to get the best players from Serie A1 for Italy, which is the Italian major league, and we're going to bring them over, and then we're going to buttress it with a couple of minor leaguers. Now you're seeing a lot of big leaguers on these teams. You're seeing the Harrison Baders, the Jazz Chisholm, who's captain of Great Britain. You're seeing, Vinny Pasquantino for Italy. And you're seeing kind of that blend of major league, minor league, and players who are playing in their home countries in a lot of cases. I think it's kind of raised the water level for these teams. Kind of going back to you, Geoff, you've done a lot of kind of diving in. Who is a team that kind of stands out to you as one outside of that big four to kind of keep an eye on?
Yeah, it's funny. One of the teams that I'm really most interested in watching, and it maybe even could have answered the previous question on non-MLB guys, and that's the South Korea roster. They have a trio of young position players. I think we might have talked about them maybe about a month or two back on this show. But 2024 KBO MVP, one of the brightest young stars in all of Japan, Do Young Kim, missed a good chunk of last season with injuries, but the prior year hit 347, 420, 647 with 38 home runs as like a 22-year-old or a 21-year-old. Hun Min An, who is a guy that this season broke in and won the Rookie of the Year, also won a Gold Glove. He's one of I think 2 players in KBO history to do that. He's got a little bit of pull side pop as well. And then Hyun Bin Moon, who's another 21-year-old utility guy who showed some power this year, some speed, and really hit. So they're a team that I'm kind of honing in on that's outside of that primary group. Outside of NPB and, of course, the North American leagues. KBO is kind of one of the premier professional baseball leagues in the world. There's a lot of quality there. And they have kind of this young core group that maybe isn't going to lead them deep in this WBC, but could in future WBCs. And it might be kind of a golden generation blossoming here. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on. And as somebody that covers the players that come over from Asia, always kind of, gets my interest.
I'm going to throw out also with that Great Britain, because that's a team that, like, we talk about Jazz Chisholm, we talk about Harry Ford, but also it's guys like Gary Gill-Hill. They've got some kind of younger guys on that team who I'm going to be interested to see kind of on the big stage as well. By the way, you say, well, why did you look at every pitcher that was in this? We did over at baseballamerica.com in the power rankings. We have the average fastball velocity for each and every country here at the, and again, I know that velo's not everything, but it is a very useful kind of shorthand way of kind of showing arm talent, kind of showing talent. Because yes, I mean, I know that there are guys who throw 85, have a really good changeup or a really good something, but if you throw 97, your slider's probably going to be pretty good too. And the thing that does jump out with that, this DR team, the Dominican Republic team, who has really good, especially a bullpen on this team, but that actually leads the way. 96 and a half miles an hour average velo, fastball velo for their club. US is number 2, Venezuela number 3, Mexico 4, another one to watch, and Japan 5. At the flip side of it, speaking of Korea, not a whole lot of, like top tier arm talent as far as velo talent. 91, kind of sitting near the bottom. The one that really shocked me, though, Australia is averaging 88 miles an hour. That's kind of, there's not really a whole lot of guys on that Australian team. They've had a little bit more in the past. And so I'm going to kind of be interested to see how well they can kind of hold up. Because again, I'm not saying velo is everything, but especially in a tournament like this, there can be some slower bats. And if you can just rear back and throw it by, if you're a Tayron Guerrero, guys like that, you're going to probably have a little bit of success. The other thing to watch, I would say, is as Japan is the defending champs, but that rotation in 23 was Otani, Yamamoto, Darvish, and Sasaki and Shota Imanaga. It's good still, but Otani's a DH. Sasaki's not on it. Yamamoto's there. Darvish is done. It's good, but it's not at that same level. But from the WBC through the World Series to the World Cup to NASCAR and IndyCar, with Fox One, you get it all live. Start your 7-day free trial today. Offers are subject to change. Download Fox One today and stream the World Baseball Classic live March 6th to 14th. Go to fox1.com for complete terms and conditions. Fox One, streaming now. So now let's get all the way out of AA, because one of the topics that we are talking about in spring training, another piece up at baseballamerica.com, is looking at, we've got Connor Griffin, we got Kevin McGonigal battling for big league roster spots coming out of opening day. And Ian, as we look at them, one of the things is they haven't played AAA baseball yet. Now, you could argue that Connor Griffin and McGonigal haven't played a ton of AA time yet either, but there is a piece over at baseballamerica.com about whether AAA experience is vital to kind of the maturation process. And I'll give you kind of the shorthand version is we found that there's a lot of stars who do kind of skip over it. But what is your kind of thoughts as you've kind of seen this? This is a first team of guys who skip over AAA as we go to you, Ian. But what are you thinking about guys how important do you think that AAA experience is?
I think it's something that's really lessened since baseball has come back since the pandemic. I think before the pandemic, everything, AAA was kind of seen as a finishing school, and prospects would go there and you'd get their first real taste of the guys with the MLB experience, those veteran minor leaguers. It would be a good place to hone your skills. And now I think that it's kind of evolved where if you're a top guy, you don't really need AAA, as you did a great job laying out. The list of players that have skipped AAA, you can build multiple all-star teams based on those guys. And now I think it's more of a luxury where teams that are a little more patient, that maybe don't have a need, you can send your top prospects there and have them spend some time there. But it's not a necessity. If you're, a generational talent or even just a high-end player, potential all-star, I don't think AAA is seen as a necessity by a lot of organizations.
Geoff, you've seen a lot of AAA baseball over the years, but especially as Ian mentioned, it's kind of changed. Like we have the reorganization of the minors in 2021, and Class A, AA, AAA all changed with that. We've also had, I would say, in AAA also, we've had the ABS system and the ABS challenge system in recent years. How have you seen like the kind of what you get out of AAA? How has that changed, do you think, in the last few years?
Yeah, and I think the technology that's been used has impacted this conversation a little bit. I think the heightened run environments for sure have heightened this conversation, where I think there's more value on the pitching side. Just in terms of seeing better lineups, it's not something that's you can really replicate in the lower minors. There's no traject machine with, a whole MLB lineup that you can face, at least that I'm aware of at this point. And I think that creates a different challenge, which is why when you sort of dig through this list, there are outstanding positional talent that has, skipped AAA. And I bet if we even went, less than 25 games in AAA, there's probably a lot of all-stars within that mix as well. Rafi Devers is one that I can call out from memory. So I think you sort of look at this and you say, well, these are some of the most talented, best players that were top prospects. All of these guys, skip AAA. When you're looking at elite players like a Connor Griffin or a Kevin McGonigal, if there is an option to start the season at this point in time in the major leagues, we saw the Pirates kind of deal with the negative side of this with Paul Skeens in terms of trying to get that extra year of control and then losing it when he won a Cy Young and not getting the draft pick compensation, etc. There seems to be a really good case that Griffin should make this team. And then I think when you look at the Tiger situation with Tarek Skubal and only a year left in the contract and his potential walk year, it makes a lot of sense to have the best possible team you can have from the beginning and optimize your draft capital, etc. So I think there's just a bunch of reasons to do it, but certainly AAA experience isn't one that I feel holds players back, particularly on the position side, from getting where they need to be.
Right. I would say, like with any study, kind of acknowledged in this, there are limitations to it. We're looking at the mass, right? Like there are players who there may be a reason that you need AAA time. I do think on the pitching side right now, especially as for a couple of reasons. One, AAA is using the major league ball, right? So if you've never pitched in the majors and you go from AA, you are adjusting to a different baseball. Having that time in AAA do that. And now where you're going to have the ABS challenge system, not in AA and below, but in AAA, and then in the majors, it gives you a little bit more of that acclimation period that way as well. So there are some things that you can get out of AAA that you don't get at the lower levels of the minors. We also are seeing, by the way, that AAA, we are seeing kind of overall, the average, I would say, is going up a little bit, or actually hasn't changed, I would say. We're not seeing really a change in how many average plate appearances players have before they reach the majors. And I say that's a little different then we see at AA and A ball and below, where a study recently showed that those levels, we are seeing fewer games before teams get moved up. And I do think that this will be something interesting worth monitoring, because you could make the argument that Connor Griffin, maybe there's a reason for McGonigal or Griffin to take that kind of a little bit of time in AAA, but it is hard with both of those to see. The stars are the ones who can make adjustments. And even if they have Mike Trout being an example of a guy who needed a little bit of acclimation time at the big league level, didn't take long, and I don't know that more AAA time would have really benefited the Angels there, because he was a star by year 2. And when you kind of look at that, I think that the thing I want to go back to you, Ian, because again, you also see a lot of this. I feel like on the pitching side, maybe there's a little bit more to it. Is that where you think maybe there is a little bit more benefit to kind of facing a little bit more experienced hitters and kind of getting adjusted to the ball and the challenge system?
Definitely. I think that's a great point. I think that, as you see by the list that you have, that the hitters, it's a great list. Pitchers, it's going to be a little different. And I think a great example of when you're talking about the ball is someone like Kendry Rojas, who got up to AAA last year with the Twins after he was acquired at the deadline. And he really struggled to adjust. And a lot of it came down to just the new ball was just a very different experience for him. And getting acclimated to that, in addition to the ABS system and facing, that's where you get those good AAA hitters, I think is very beneficial for pitchers. So yeah, I think it is kind of a split thing where for hitters, if you're a good hitter, it's going to play at the majors or AAA regardless. But if you're a pitcher, getting that acclimation time and that experience at the level as you continue to ramp up, I think is definitely still beneficial.
Good comment here that we're going to bring up. Speaking of Connor Griffin, been following camp wondering, how are you going to go for it this year and start Nick Gonzalez at shortstop over Connor Griffin? I think that's kind of the point that we've been kind of making. I feel like over the off season is you can, it kind of, the Pirates were kind of stuck in a in-between world. They didn't have another answer at shortstop. And I don't think, nothing against Nick Gonzalez, but he's really more of a second baseman, I think, long-term than a shortstop. But at the same time, you also weren't going to go out and get someone to block Connor Griffin. So they're kind of now in this in-between world where it's like, he's the best shortstop we got, partly because we didn't go out and get another shortstop to block him, to slow his development, slow his arrival. You put that all together and you have a pretty strong argument. And by the way, we have another piece up at Baseball America. So much stuff over at baseballamerica.com, as that we also made a point. if you saw Connor Griffin was hitting 214, I believe, coming out of Sunday's game, take a look at his at-bats, take a look at his swing and miss. And yes, it's not just the homers. He's not getting outmatched. He's really very rarely swinging and missing so far in spring training. A lot there to like of what Connor Griffin has done early in spring training. So that is going to be our look at how fast players should move and whether they can skip over AAA. But we're going to head into the final sprint in a minute.
Baseball America Hot Sheet is produced by the Foul Territory Network.
Listen to authentic conversations and unique insights across a variety of shows hosted by esteemed writers and all-stars alike. The people who know our game best.
I'm happy to be on. You guys have been doing such a great job with the show.
We debate baseball's hottest news while also chatting with over 700 current Major League players in laid-back, long-form conversations unique to FT.
One of my heels on the baseline, and then it's just trust the guy's going to bunt it and crash as hard as I can.
Catch us live from baseball's biggest events, winter meetings, all-star games, and award shows with access the other guys wish they could get.
That was my whole key to hitting was I mastered BP.
Subscribe on YouTube and rate 5 stars wherever you listen. Support your favorites and share us with a friend. We are changing the way baseball is consumed, and we want you right there with us. The Foul Territory Network. Baseball, the way it should be covered.
We're able to wrap this up by bringing it back to the top and also keeping it prospect focused, because Nolan McLean, the Mets right-hander, who is still prospect eligible, it's come out today that he has been dealing with vertigo. He's lost a little bit of weight. He does expect still to pitch for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic if everything goes okay. But at the same time, this is kind of, I think, a perfect way to he's saying that he could end up pitching the March 17th final. But if there is a little setback here. We've already heard that Tarek Skubal is only going to make 1 start. We know we know that Skeens is looking to make 2. Geoff, when I look at this, if McLean kind of takes a step back, we already had Joe Ryan's out for now, Ryan Yarbrough in. If Team USA is going to get derailed here, I feel like lining up of the starting pitching may be the most challenging part of this for manager Mark DeRosa and kind of the Team USA staff.
Yeah, I think that's, always one of the biggest challenges that you deal with is, how available certain pitchers are, even the smallest nicks, bruises. Obviously, that's not the case with Nolan McLean, but really any sort of health scare, any sort of issue probably is going to, shut a guy down. So you're always sort of dealing with that lingering even beyond the stuff that we already know about now. And I think that was always the biggest challenge for DeRosa entering this tournament. It's only accelerated with, some of the news that we've gotten over the last few days, weeks.
Right. That's where I do think that Team Japan has often had a little bit of an advantage here. Not that they don't want to keep their players healthy, but I would say that Japan always has taken this tournament more seriously than anyone else. And you've seen kind of the stars kind of step in to kind of the key roles. I would say, again, Tarek Skubal is pitching for Team USA. That is significant. That is important. That is, to be honest, we've just seen this. This is the best starting rotation that Team USA has ever gotten for the World Baseball Classic. That said, he's not going to pitch the gold medal. He's not going to pitch the championship game. We kind of know that already. Those kind of aspects are a little bit of kind of a concern. Now, I will kind of ask you, Ian. So Nolan McLean is lining up to pitch the championship game if all goes well. Does that surprise you at all that in this rotation, we just talked about that you have to kind of mix and match, but that would be a rookie. That would be a player who is still prospect eligible getting the ball in the biggest game of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, you would think they would try to line it up differently, but I think there's just so many factors in play when it comes to lining up the pitching staff. You have the guys on their throw days, and I'm guessing that if you're going to get a commitment from guys like Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal, et cetera, you want to keep it as close to what they would, to simulate what they would be doing if they're in normal camp. And so I think just keeping guys on their throw days, and this is kind of how it just worked out where McLean is the one. But, when you get to the final, it's going to be an all hands on deck situation. So I think that, just as important as McLean will be, you're probably only looking at, maybe 4 or 5 innings at most. And then it's the bullpen is going to be vitally important, which I think Team USA is in pretty good shape there also. So it's definitely interesting that McLean is the one that lined up there, but I think that might just be something that's out of Team USA's control.
As you said, this is a very good Team USA bullpen. I am going to be interested to see. Clayton Kershaw is kind of the you can use him wherever you want to. You don't have to worry about like wearing him out for the season or anything like that. But at the same time, this is Clayton Kershaw, who is not the Clayton Kershaw of years and years ago. So we'll have to see. Uncle Ted making the point as well. We'll have to see how that goes. This is a really good bullpen, but at the same time, that's going to be kind of interesting to see how it all lines up. One of the key parts of WBC is matching up your pitching to the matchups you have. Some teams, if you're trying to get out, avoid qualifying next time, you put all your best pitchers into that one game against the other team battling for fourth place. For Team USA, you're trying to line it up. For Japan, you're trying to line it up to make sure that these teams you're going to be ready to go in the games that matter the most. And we do want to thank you for joining us on the latest edition of the Baseball America Hot Sheet Show. If you enjoyed this, please check out all the content over at Baseball America's YouTube channel, our podcast feed, subscribe, and also check out baseballamerica.com. Remember to like, subscribe, and share so others can see this as well. Thank you for joining us, and let's all go enjoy the WBC.